Nicolas Chikhani.
Right.
I'm grateful to have the opportunity to sit down with you again. We've had several conversations.
Indeed.
I think we're going to have many conversations to come. But as someone who represents an independent expert advice on the banking, financial, and economic structure of Lebanon, as well as the social impact on Lebanon, it's a pleasure to sit with you and to learn from you and to help the rest of Lebanon and the world understand what's going on. So I'm very grateful that we're having this conversation again.
Thanks to you.
Where I want to start this conversation is your visit to the EU a week and a half ago. Why did you go? And we'll get into it, but what was the importance of that trip?
In fact, it was an alignment of opportunities that we didn't look for. Okay? We were discussing with some friends, and they said to us there is a group of European parliamentary who are visiting Beirut. And from one to the other, we managed to get in contact with them. And by pure chance or luck, there was a window of opportunity of 10 minutes to sit with them at lunchtime and pitch what's happening in Lebanon. What was worrying and surprising is that they were not aware about the catastrophic situation. They knew that Lebanon was in an economic crisis. What they have learned from their visit across the different groups and parties and political is that Lebanon has signed something with the IMF, kind of a first staff level agreement, and things were going okay. But they were not aware that nothing was moving forward. They were not aware that the situation in Lebanon was economically catastrophic. They were not aware that there was a huge devaluation and money, depositors' money were completely spent, and now people lost all of their money in banks. They were not aware about the desperate situation of depositors, and they were not aware that the current economical salvation plan that was proposed by the government was extremely bad for the country. So we pitched this in 10 minutes, and they were extremely surprised to hear a 180-degree story about the situation.
Who was giving them the information?
I mean, I think they visited everybody. Okay, from political parties, from politicians, from prime minister, from everybody.
So the official authorities were giving them a story, but the reality was 180 degrees.
The people who they visited, which are the officials, okay, gave them a story less, let's say, gloomy. As it is actually the what's happening in the country. So they were extremely surprised, and they became very much interested to understand more. So they asked the person who was with me to explain more about depositors, and they wanted me to explain more about the economic situation and solutions.
When we talk about depositors, we're talking about the Lebanese people whose money has been lost in the banks.
Absolutely.
The depositors' funds or depositors' crisis, banking crisis, is something that you are also championing as someone who's worked in banking for 30 years, as a Harvard business graduate, working in banks across Europe from Zurich to Dubai to New York to London. You have extensive experience in this area. So you can really speak with authority on this.
In fact, indeed, what you are saying was perfectly right. My background, I'm a banker. For the last, let's say, 33 years. I worked across the globe between Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, Geneva, Beirut, London, Paris, you name it, where you have banks. And there, in fact, I developed this banking experience that I really want to bring back to my country to help the country, because the situation in Lebanon, the problem is a banking problem, is a central bank problem, it's a debt problem, is a budget deficit problem, is a balance of payment problem. So when you put all this together, okay, you have a big problem. You have an extensive problem. It's a unique crisis across, never in the history of humanity, you had so many crises concentrated at one place that made something explode. Depositors lost maybe $120 billion
Wow.
of deposit, okay, that we need to reconstitute. And there are solutions. And this is what we pitched to the European
Right. So
Union.
take us to that meeting at the EU.
14th of February.
Wallah,
And Valentine's Day, we spent it.
That's right. In the EU.
The EU.
Romancing the EU
It was amazing.
with the crisis of Lebanon.
Yes. So what happened is that they asked for us material during our meeting in Beirut. We sent them the material, we sent them explanation about the depositor situation, and I provided them with the plan that I said as an alternative to the bad recovery plan of the government. And they compared and they understood. They have people over there, and they said, okay, great, we want to invite you. We want you to come, visit us, explain what's happening in order for us to lobby within the European Parliament about the right way to save Lebanon. It's not what we hear and what's happening. Yeah. So that's why we went there.
How did that go, the 14th of February, when you presented?
Okay. In fact, when we arrived there, we discovered that Lebanon was not on the map. Okay, you have.
How did you discover that?
Because nobody was talking about Lebanon.
Even in the candidates there, the members, the delegates?
Not only the delegate. You know, the whole parliament, all the discussions in the European Parliament for the last few months, maybe 6 months or more, were around Ukraine and the war in Europe. Little bit about what's happening in Turkey and Syria, about the earthquake, but that's all. Lebanon was not on the map, and we discovered there was a fatigue around Lebanon problem. A fatigue generated by the complexity of the political situation in Lebanon and the way the one and the others, you know, tried to pull levers to take over the situation politically locally. And they didn't want to intervene in the sovereignty of the country. So it was kind of a Cornelian problem. I love you, but I hate you at the same time, you know. So we came here to explain to them what they can do, okay, and how they can help, and what is the real situation in Lebanon. In fact, they were extremely interested because they didn't know what was happening. You know, when they were in Lebanon, we pitched for 10 minutes. Over there, we were for 2 hours, explaining the situation in front of people. It was translated in all the languages. And what's beautiful is that before we arrived, for a few days, 1 week, they created a leaflet about Lebanon and explaining how desperate were depositors. And this leaflet was broadcasted across all the digital panels of the parliament for 1 week, every 10 minutes. It was rolling. So we were able, in fact, to bring back the name Lebanon in the minds of all the parliamentary that were seeing all these billboards, hundreds of them, because the parliament is huge, reignited, yeah. Okay, and I think this is very, very important. The brand was obsolete, was forgotten, and it came back on the scene for 1 week, every 10 minutes on all the billboards, digitally.
Phenomenal, well done. I can't say well done enough, because putting Lebanon back on the map and bringing it back into conversation, into the narrative globally, is very critical. I just want to ask why you think it's been off the agenda.
Every time someone outside Lebanon tried to help or understand, he got confronted with opposite ideas, egos, interests, lobbies, where each one tried to pull the rope towards himself. So they're lost. They're lost. At the same time, the main international problem of Lebanon, which was the sign-off of the border resolution for the oil problem between Lebanon and Israel, was solved. Okay, and so there was nothing that could interest someone in Lebanon anymore. So all this made Lebanon disappearing from the map, slowly, and even completely. Which is bad. So we really need to remarket the country first, and this is a job of ministries. Okay,
but what's going to happen?
We discovered that there is a need. people are thirsty about Lebanon, because Lebanon is a pays message, as Jean-Paul II said. It's a pays message, that it's a country which is a message to the world. You have a multi-composition of communities of religions that are living together. Once again, I hate you, I love you. Okay, but this is it. This is it, and this is an example to the world, where le vivre ensemble, that the live together, is very important. In every country in Europe today, they are looking for the vivre ensemble, because this population is shifting, is changing, community, religions-wise, and they need to discover how to live, to do it, in order to avoid any problem in the future. And Lebanon is an example of survival here. Okay, there are interests, there are lobbies, there are international, but the people are great. Lebanese people are fantastic. Okay, and we need we need to save this ecosystem that create the uniqueness of Lebanon, which is Liban message, which is the vivre ensemble that the Pope Jean-Paul II talked about. And this is fundamental. That's why Lebanon is fantastic. That's why Lebanon is great. And we need to pitch and sell this image to the world and celebrate it.
So tell me, what was the outcome?
So we presented, we were two people. My friend Richard presented the suffering of the depositors, and they were very much, they felt it in their heart. Sensitive. They were touched, very much touched with what he said. And I explained from my side the main problems in Lebanon, the main two problems in Lebanon. First, of course, the independence of justice. You know, the politics in the justice, forbidding some judge to do things and permitting some others. You know, so the justice was a very important topic, especially in Europe. You know, governance, justice, equity, equality. This is fundamental values in Europe. So they were very much sensitive to this. And I explained the economic problem. What happened? They didn't know how all this exploded. I discussed about the Ponzi system, not the Ponzi scheme, because it was a system between the state, central bank, and banks, and explained to them what are the roadmap for a solution that could be fair and, very importantly, can bring back trust to the equation. Because if you don't have trust in justice, if you don't have trust in the administration, if you don't have trust in the financial system, you cannot build back an economy and the nation. We don't want to build a country. We want to build a nation. And this is completely different. So we need to preserve this diversity. We need to preserve the Liban message. We need to preserve the ecosystem that creates Lebanon to build back a nation. We need to preserve the youth. The youth. Because they are the least sensitive to the political equation or community or religious equation. On the contrary, you know, I teach in university, I see them, they go up together, they date each other from different communities, different religions. And the beauty is that they do projects together, they are happy together, but all of them wants to leave the country. And this is what we need to stop the draining of the brains that can build back the country. If you have a country without brains, we are going to be doomed. Many countries were represented, okay, in Europe.
Whole of the European
not whole, but many countries were represented by their deputies, and they had problems. They have problems internal. You can see what's happening.
They're looking to Lebanon as a way out, or to find some solutions.
As a learning ecosystem where they can learn to avoid problems in the future, either financially, because you know the finance in Europe is shaky also, community problems, religious problems, social problems, social unrest. You see what's happening in some countries, France, Belgium, etc. So all this, we try to make them more interested in Lebanon. So what's next?
What you did was show them what the value that Lebanon brings to them,
yes,
what they can learn from Lebanon,
and why they have to preserve it,
and why they should preserve it. What's at stake to them, to the world also. If Lebanon fails, it means their systems are going to fail. If Lebanon, that has been like this for hundreds and actually thousands of years, nearly, because of since the evolution of other religions in this country, the minorities have always had a safe haven here in Lebanon. so the impact on them could be quite substantial if they don't learn the lessons that Lebanon can give them. But
Absolutely.
when you look at
this was
our
something
problem,
to which they were very sensitive.
Our problem is not religious or ethnocentric at all, or because they're living in harmony. Our problem, Lebanon's problem, really is political, at a political level, and the depth of the corruption. So in a way, they've got their political system in place. They've got systems that control and institutions that control corruption to much better than Lebanon. So in a way, we offer them a way to see how the other layer, the fabric of society, could work effectively, because that is still working in Lebanon, like you explained.
Absolutely.
It's the higher levels which they should teach us or help us with improving our political system.
The political governance and judicial system is working, but can be shaky if they have a social problem.
100%.
So and we try to understand how we can pitch a message.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, you pitched it the right way.
I don't know. I hope, because we will not stop there. We're gonna organize many other contacts next week and the week after. We'll continue. But at the end of the meeting, and there was a few parliamentary who were very much influenced in France and in another country, who came to us after me and said, we want to help you. We want to start, for example, supporting independence of justice. So we'll try to understand from our side what's happening and come back to you with how we can support it, how they can talk about it in the huge hemicycle of the Strasbourg Parliament, and maybe do a resolution. And this is very important. A resolution without entering in the sovereignty of the country, but explaining what is right and what's wrong, what need to be done, so that people like you, like me, like other people who are really on the ground, who are fighting for the right, can hang on to such a resolution and say, this is right. This is what we need to take in consideration for Lebanon.
Yeah.
And it will help us continue the story, because it's becoming difficult, right?
Yes.
It's becoming difficult. People are tired. People are suffering. People are getting into huge Stockholm syndrome. Stockholm syndrome, where they are afraid of they are hanging to the $200 that is being given to them. Yeah. Otherwise, they cannot feed their families. So there is no reaction anymore. And it's time to get the light. They can bring the light in this tunnel, where when you get into the tunnel, you see there is a light. Because there is light, you will continue the fight. Otherwise, it's dark.
Well, let me ask you then, you said they want to take it away and look at how they can support the institutions, justice and democracy and those things that are unquestionable. I don't know if you've been in touch with them since or during that time, whether you discussed the sit-in in Parliament by Milham Khalaf and Dr. Najat Saliba, the two deputies that have been staging the sit-in to defend the institution, the constitution and democracy. I think, to me, I've been following the story and supporting it because they are protecting two very important institutions. Did that come up in conversation at all? Were they aware of it?
No, we highlighted it.
Yes.
In fact, we highlighted that there are two parliamentary doing kind of a strike in the parliament.
Yes.
In order to protect the constitution. Yes. This is very important. Yeah. The most important. In fact, we have a very good constitution. It needs to be tweaked in some places to make it working, but the basics are here. And but it's not followed. It's not followed. Let's not go even to Taif. Even the constitution itself, it's not followed. When you talk about equality, equity, when you talk about the president, we talk about the role of each one of the legislative, executive, the independence between them. Nothing is applied. Why do we have a constitution today if everyone wants to rule on his way and execute his orders? No. We need to ensure 100% that the constitution is abided and protected, and we need to ensure that we have a strategy long term. It's not the minister come and he decide this, another one come, he change his mind. No, you need a strategy to save the country,
Yeah.
like in Saudi Arabia, like in 2030, 2050 strategy. And whoever comes, he need to abide by the strategy.
That's right.
Not to change it every
Yeah.
time, okay? You don't change a strategy every day.
No.
And if you ask me what is the most important part in the constitution to be changed, okay, there are timelines, things like that, vacancy about the this is very important. But the most important, the parliamentary cannot judge if something is constitutional or not. They cannot be the judge and the execution. Okay, in the previous version of the constitution, it was the High Commission of Judges who used to decide if something was constitutional or not. Now the parliament themselves decide about themselves. Okay, there's a huge conflict of interest between themselves and themselves.
Lebanon is a huge
okay, so this
conflict
needs to be corrected in the constitution in order to ensure that Majlis al-Dusturi, in Arabic we say, can see decide if something is right or wrong. That's important.
That's going to happen.
And we need to protect it.
We
need to protect it. And this is what our two friends, deputies, are doing in the parliament day and night. It's difficult for them. They are in fact blocking the system today to not go wrong. Now that's powerful. That's powerful.
So on that point, you said that the EU parliamentarians, some of them was going to come back to you with how they can support these structures.
We are organizing some meetings.
So what's the next step?
Next,
how do we keep going with this?
In fact, we also contacted the French Senate.
Yes.
Okay, we didn't communicate too much on that, but the meeting was in a closed, let's say, doors. Okay.
Behind closed doors?
Yes.
With a select group of people, senators?
With a few senators that are very close to Lebanon. And even this meeting was extremely long. Here they promised to do the resolution.
So we need to hold them accountable.
They proposed. Here they promised.
Okay.
So
we've got two groups.
Yes, two groups. One at the European level, one at the French level. But we need to continue.
We need to hold
continue.
Them accountable.
We need to be many, saying the same. We should not go every time and asking for something different. They'll get lost again.
That's it.
Okay, we need to concentrate. We need to do a group with one demand or two demands only, and the same for everyone.
Yep.
Okay, you have to focus. You always focus on what you ask. Don't ask too many things. Ask the most important, the most strategic one.
Yeah. It's something that I often consider every time I go to either have an interview with somebody or I'm meeting with high-level officials. What is the ask? What am I going to ask them? And can they actually deliver that to me or to Lebanon? It's something that needs to be considered before you go into that meeting. Because if your ask is unreasonable or unachievable, don't even ask. So it's important to have consultations prior to going to any sort of high-level meeting to know if this ask is achievable by them. They have to be able to give it to us. If they're unable, then we are wasting our time. What was your ask?
The ask was we need their help to protect the independence of justice. We need their help to look at the economic plan we have done in order to support us with any potential negotiation with the IMF for the right plan. We want the IMF, but we want the right plan with the IMF, not any plan. Yes. It was very focused. Okay?
Because just explain that to people.
In fact, what has been agreed with the IMF today is a plan that destroys trust. Okay, we are telling the IMF, okay, we will solve the country problem by making the central bank defaulting on the banks. And if the central bank default on the banks will lose $88 billion. And if the banks lose $88 billion, they will go bankrupt, okay, wiped out, and the depositor will lose $70 billion of deposit. The state would be wiping out a financial system and taking over the private property, which is the money of depositors. No one in the globe will come back and trust the Lebanese financial system. No depositor, no investor will come put his money in this country because it was a law that approved by the parliament. Hopefully not. This is what is proposed today. Yes, it will solve the problem, but at what price? At destroying the economy of Lebanon for 50 years.
Why would the
At
IMF
destroying the Lebanese lira for 100 years.
Why would the IMF do that?
The IMF we are wondering if the IMF is accepting that or not. Because every time we talk with these people, they said IMF is asking, IMF is saying that. I want to hear this from the IMF that they are agreeing on this. Absolutely,
I think they know.
Anna. For me, we are reaching the level where the Lebanese problem is what we call in Arabic mumanhaji. It has been built to be destroyed. The Lebanese economy has there was a plan built to destroy the Lebanese economy. So instead of having a monetary policy at the level of the central bank in relation with the Ministry of Finance, in order financial policy, monetary policy, and fiscal policy aligned to build an economy, the economy is adapting by dollarizing itself. We call this dirty dollarization. Dirty dollarization is the worst that can happen to a country. Dirty, the worst. Okay, that means the central bank is not acting on the ground monetary wise. That means the Ministry of Finance fiscally is doomed, and that means the consumer, the depositor, and the poor people will suffer forever.
Is this a failed state?
It's terrible.
Is this a failed state?
This is what's happening. We tick all the boxes for a failed state. Okay, no economy, corruption, dollarization, money laundering, fat Gaddafi might be failed or gray or black, no independence of justice, Ponzi scheme, no monetary policy, political problem, failure of public service, fully failure of public service. What else do you need for a failed state? I mean, but let's see if it ticks the international standards or criteria of a failed state. We are very close, I think. And the salvation may come from here. We are going too low. We are at the bottom today. Can we go even lower? Yes, of course. I was in a conference today about the medical sector. You know that 20% of the doctors left. You know that who leave are the good ones because they are good, they find job.
Yes.
Okay, 20% of the nurses left. 15 to 20% of the hospitals are closing part of their beds, and the social security is not able today to cover people. It used to cover 60% of the insurance of someone. Now it's covering 1% or 2%. I don't know, 3%. It moves every day.
Yeah.
It's becoming ridiculous. So no social protection anymore. That's why Lebanon need for the next 5 years, I think, a national insurance, a social net. Not only to eat, we need people like you.
We need to start with the ask on us is what we can do. That is something that is going to come.
And I think if we have a president, okay, and a prime minister, the second day they need to do one thing: independence of justice. This will save the country. When you have a justice, you have right preserved. Okay, and when you have right preserved, you have trust, confidence in every institution or economy.
We're going to finish on this point and ask you one question. What are the chances of us getting a president and a prime minister of the profile that you just explained at this time in Lebanon's history? What percentage?
I'm not an oracle. If you don't get this president, the whole population in Lebanon will suffer from all borders.
But what are the chances?
So I am calling today to every Lebanese, okay, from Nabatiye to Jounieh, from Jounieh to Tripoli to Baalbek, Zahli, and Beirut. Wake up! It's time. The nation is at stake of non-existence anymore.
But what can
if this is what they want, now they have to wake up, go back to the street.
And do what?
And ask for justice.
How? What can they do realistically? I asked you a question. What are the chances of us getting a president and a prime minister that we really want in the image?
The chances are very low.
It's very low.
The chances are very low. But would you stop? But
zero.
No, it's not zero. It's not zero. The chances.
I'm actually not joking. I'm laughing because it's
the
impossible.
Chances are very low. Okay?
Yeah. Because why?
Because the existing political structure is still the same.
Okay.
Because of the Lebanese people themselves who did not succeed, or they didn't want to make the change during the last exception.
How?
What?
Let's keep going. Why?
Because they voted wrong.
What happened?
What happened? The same people came back to the same place.
What could have the Lebanese people done
Yes.
in 2022, May 2022,
They should,
that would have given us much more power to be able to elect the president or the prime minister we really want?
We should have unified lists. We didn't have. Okay. Second, the voting percentage should have reached 70%. We were at 42. Okay, the difference between 42 and 70% would have brought you 50% of the parliament of the new parliamentary. This would have made a reach.
This is what I'm.
This is fundamental.
This is where the power is.
The power is in the people.
50% or more than 50%
So
in
what we need
parliament.
to do is to start brainwashing the Lebanese and tell them that
educate
educate
them. We don't even
them.
need to brainwash. We need to educate them properly.
Educate them properly. Bring them the right tools from schools.
This is where I'm getting to.
Okay, just
What
this.
I'm going to get to is what we can do, not what we can dream about. What we should and can do. And I want to make it clear to people that why I said, what are the chances of getting a president or prime minister that we want?
Weak.
It's almost impossible because we don't control the balance of power in the parliament.
But you don't have something very important, justice. I come back to the basic. You have a state that protect his people. People will not be afraid and go back to their zaim. So that you have the state, justice. And if you ask me, the only thing, please lobby for justice. Justice will make the difference, Daisy. Justice. Okay? We need to ensure that everyone who does something wrong go to prison or get judged. And here you can make the change. Okay?
Impunity has to be
erased.
erased.
Zero tolerance on corruption. Zero tolerance on corruption. Singapore, zero tolerance on corruption. UAE, zero tolerance in corruption. Make it happen and let's see. You will have the most beautiful country in the world. It will take 1 year here.
Let's leave it on that note.
Yes.
That was a beautiful interview.
Not 5 years, 1 year.
That was a beautiful note, the most important point, and I'm very glad we got to those fine points. Thank you, Nicolas.
Welcome, Daisy.